plants. Second part, elemental magic, elemental evolution. Akasa and prana are eternal. The incoming tides of monads are dressed with vehicles when prana enters into activity. Thus, they express themselves as elementals. These elemental tides devolve and evolve. They descend from heaven, from Urania, and then they ascend again towards the infinite. This flux and reflux of life eternally resounds with the Chinese Kung. Nature has 7 elements, which are populated by elementals. The elementals descend from the worlds of light, downwards, until the mineral kingdom, and they ascend from this mineral kingdom, upwards, towards the worlds of light. Elementals from the mineral, vegetable, and animal kingdoms exist. The most evolved elementals from the mineral kingdom enter into the vegetable kingdom, and the most evolved elementals from the vegetable kingdom enter into the animal kingdom. The evolved elementals from the animal kingdom enter into the human kingdom. The elementals are eternal. A divine spark, the intimate spirit, exists within every elemental. All of us human beings were elementals. I, Samael Aun Weor, Archbishop of the Holy Gnostic Church, Master of Major Mysteries from the White Lodge, Initiator of the New Era and Great Avatar of Aquarius, pronounce the following affirmations. First, everything which Franz Hartmann wrote about the elementals is filled with very grave errors. Second, everything which Leadbeater wrote about elemental evolution is filled with very grave errors. Third, everything which the spiritualist writers have written about the elementals is filled with very grave errors. Fourth, none of the evolving elemental surges could enter into the Divike or angelic kingdom without having previously passed through the gigantic human evolution. Fifth, no human being has existed who has not been an elemental. As well, no elemental current exists that will not enter into the human state. Sixth, if we clairvoyantly observe the interior of a rock, we will see millions of mineral elementals evolving within that rock. Therefore, the rock is only the physical body of those mineral elementals, as the plants are the physical body for the vegetable elementals. Seventh, if we observe an animal, we see that the body of that animal is the physical body of an animal elemental, who is preparing itself in order to enter into the human state. We enunciate these fundamental declarations in order for the spiritualist students to open their eyes and abandon those horrible theosophical and Rosicrucian lodges that only produce degeneration upon thousands of souls. Certain elemental creatures with an animal appearance exist. One only needs to exert power upon them in order to unleash a tempest or to stop one. The mineral elementals appear in certain places where there is buried gold. They appear like a golden hen with her chickens, or as little golden children who soon submerge themselves into the place where the buried gold is located. Every elemental has its own name. The name of every elemental is eternal. Samatania is a very ancient animal elemental whose virginal spark will completely awaken him in the Thur in order to incarnate him into a human body. Serenio is the elemental chief of a group of wood pigeons that inhabit the hills of the eastern mountain range of Colombia. He has the appearance of an infantile figure with a suit of feathers and bird wings. The elementals from gigantic trees look like giants. The buried treasures remain guarded by the elemental guardians. These treasures are only found when these elementals deliver them by command of the lords of karma. These elemental guardians can carry their treasures to other places and place them in a jinn, enchanted state. This is how no one can trespass over the will of the lords of karma. Egypt elemental. The Egyptian civilization comes from a very remote Neptunian Amencian period. The Sphinx, which has resisted the course of the centuries, is simply the image of the elemental Sphinx of the goddess nature. This elemental Sphinx is the supreme master of the whole elemental magic of nature. When a master reaches the 5th initiation of major mysteries, 7 paths appear before him, and he has to choose one amongst them. The Divike evolution corresponds to one of them. The Devas are the gods from the elemental paradises of nature. Agni, elemental god of fire, restores the igneous powers in our 7 bodies throughout each one of the 7 great initiations of major mysteries. The goddess nature herself is a guru deva who governs creation. Apollo, god of fire, guided the Greek civilization with his oracles, given through the mouth of his pythoness from the oracle of Delphi. Osiris and Horus were the great elemental gods from ancient Egypt. We can study the great mysteries of the elemental magic of nature in the College of the Sphinx. The Guru Devas work with all of nature and with the human being. They are true masters of compassion. Indra is the god of the ether. Agni is the god of fire. Pavana is the god of the air. Varuna is the god of the water. Kitichi is the god of the earth. These Guru Devas govern the elemental paradises of the elemental goddess of the world. Medina Cifuentes, author of Occult Treasures, is mistaken when he absurdly affirms that the Devas are not involved with human evolution anymore. The Guru Devas work with the human being and with the elementals of this great nature. All the Guru Devas look like true innocent children. They live and play as children. They are disciples of the elemental Sphinx of nature, who is the great master of these Deva children. Masters and disciples. A fundamental difference exists between those who have already reached the union with their intimate, that is to say, the masters, and those who still have not achieved that union, in other words, the disciples. The master has the flaming sword. The disciple still does not have it. The flaming sword gives to the master a tremendous power over all the elementals of nature. All the elemental populations from the earth, water, air, and fire tremble before such a sword, which throws fire and flames. The master can simultaneously exert power over millions of vegetable elementals. The disciple has not that power because he has not yet received the flaming sword. Therefore, the disciple must be meticulous and exact with the ritual of a plant in order for the elemental of that plant to obey him. The master does not even need to touch the plant. He can exert power over the elemental of that plant from remote distances, because the elemental of the plant trembles with terror before the flaming sword of the master. It is enough for the master to unsheath his sword in a given moment in order for millions of elementals to obey his command. The disciple cannot exert power over various elementals at the same time. He has to separately operate upon each elemental, by practicing around each plant the rite of elemental magic. The master can command his elemental advocate to perform determined works of elemental magic. His elemental advocate will obey because he trembles with terror before the flaming sword of the master. The disciple does not have the power to command his elemental advocate either, because he does not possess the sword yet. The elemental instructor of the Gnostic medic. Every human being possesses an elemental instructor. This elemental instructor is made with the elemental substances from nature, and his creator was the human being himself. The human being created his elemental instructor when he was also an elemental. The aspirations of the elemental man engendered his elemental instructor. This is how his elemental instructor was created. The elemental instructor of the Gnostic medic is a master in elementotherapy. When the readers of this book want to exert a medicinal operation on a plant, they must request the presence of their elemental advocate and beg him to practice the elemental rite of that plant, in order to join its vegetal element to the sick organ of the patient. Then, there is no doubt that the elemental advocate will join the vegetal elemental to the sick organ of the patient. The vegetal elemental must be liberated only when the body of the patient is healed. Therefore, when the sick person is healed, beg to the elemental advocate to execute the liberation of that vegetal elemental. People who live in the city and who have to buy their herbs in the marketplace will practice the elemental rite around the cut plant, thus begging their elemental advocate to join the elemental of that plant to the sick organ or sick organs of the patient. The elemental advocate will join with fluidic cords of the elemental of that plant to the sick organ or sick organs of the patient. It is astonishing to contemplate the vegetal elemental healing the sick person, rebuilding the sick organs of the patient. Since the medicinal plants are millions, it is clear that our readers will need to be wells of wisdom or Guru Devas in order to know by memory all the elemental rights of all the plants of nature. Fortunately, each human being has his own elemental advocate from nature, who has that elemental sapience. Therefore, the Gnostic medic has to train the person who will place a herb into the brewing pot to practice the elemental rite of that plant. This person will beg his elemental advocate to join the vegetal elemental to the sick organs of the patient. This is the way our readers can join the astral cords from the vegetal elementals to the sick organs of the patient. Consequently, these sick people will be healed because the plants are not the ones which cure, but their vegetal elementals. Each vegetal has its elemental. Therefore, there is the need to beg our elemental advocate to practice the rite of each plant. Our elemental advocate is the elemental instructor from nature. The elemental instructor possesses the supreme wisdom of the elemental magic of nature. With his help, we can open the storage and archives of nature and learn the profound wisdom enclosed within the memories of the elemental world. Whosoever receives the sword of justice has the power to direct his own elemental advocate in order to make his elemental advocate visible before his disciples, so that they can be protected against black magicians. During Charlemagne's reign, many people and elemental beings profoundly penetrated within our physical atmosphere. It was precisely in that time when the romantic literature of the Round Table and King Arthur's knights was born. The great elemental kings from nature live within a state of ineffable joy. They are creator gods. The natural magic or elementotherapy is as ancient as the world. The Lemurians transmitted this knowledge to the Atlanteans, who transferred it to the great hierophants of ancient Egypt. If we consult history, we will become exactly aware that the great men from the past studied under the protective wings of elemental Egypt. The great Greek legislator Solon, Moses, Apollonius from Tyana, all of them received their wisdom from elemental Egypt. The foundations of the great Egyptian period are founded upon a very ancient Neptunian activity, which is based on the elemental laws of nature. The Egyptians denominated this profound Neptunian consciousness with the name of Amenti. When the Gnostic medic affiliates himself with an internal school of elemental magic, he has to become skillful in the astral body in order to bring all the memories into his physical brain. A school of elemental magic exists in elemental Egypt. The student can affiliate himself to this school. This school is the temple of the elemental Sphinx. All of nature is the body of a goddess who exists in the astral plane. This goddess has on her head a great queen's crown, and she wears a resplendent white tunic. She is the one who commands in nature. She is the blessed mother goddess of the world. She has a temple in the internal worlds where she officiates and commands. This temple has 2 altars, and in the midst of them we see a lion of massive gold, which symbolizes the lion of the law. It is necessary for the magician to learn to speak with this goddess in the astral plane. The goddess mother of the world also has her elemental advocate, which is the elemental Sphinx of nature. The magician must learn to command this Sphinx and to converse with this goddess in order to become Lord of all creation. Hail Nui, eternal cosmic Sati. Hail Nui, light of the heavens. Hail Nut, unique and primordial soul. Aya-o. Then the priest fell into a profound ecstasy and spoke to the Queen of Heaven, saying, "Write thy teachings for us. Write thy ritual for us. Write thy light for us." Then the Queen of Heaven said in this manner, "I do not write my teachings, I cannot. Nevertheless, my rituals will be written for all, yet only that part which is not secret. The law is like this. One has to operate by the action of the staff and by the action of the sword. This should be learned and taught in this manner." A fragment from the Gnostic ritual of 2nd degree. We learn the powerful elemental wisdom in the school of the elemental Sphinx. This school is situated in the astral world. Whosoever wants to be affiliated to it has to know how to travel in astral body. The Sphinx's image is just the material symbol of a great elemental genie from nature, who is the unique guardian of this very ancient wisdom of Great Mother Nature. When a Gnostic requests admittance into the temple of the Sphinx, then the guardians meticulously examine him in order to see if he is worthy to deserve entrance and affiliation as a disciple into the school. Speaking in practical magical terms, this signifies that his spinal column is measured. For that purpose, the student is momentarily united with his intimate spirit, and he receives the command to elongate himself in order to have his spinal column measured. Thus, if the guardian or tiler permits him, he will then enter as a disciple into the temple. The Masons from antiquity were disciples from this school of elemental magic. The master of this school is an ancient initiate pharaoh who teaches elemental magic to his disciples. In this elemental Egypt, there also exists the Gallo or Gaio with his IAO. He is an elemental god from nature who takes the shape of the gallo, rooster. If the disciple wishes to awaken his kundalini, then he can beg this elemental god from nature, and he will receive help, since this elemental master is a sage in the wisdom of the serpent. This is why the gallo rooster could not have been missing from the Lord's Passion, since the gallo rooster is the symbol of the sexual force. Therefore, the gallo rooster of Christ's Passion is sacred. The elemental atoms from nature are prana. All the elemental consciousness from nature is prana, or life. Therefore, whosoever speaks against the elementals speaks against life, and the princes of these elementals close the doors to him. The elemental gods are impressive and mighty, especially Horus, pronounced Horus, who carries various bracelets or rings of massive gold around his forearm. When he delivers one of his bracelets to an initiate, then this initiate becomes a leader of a great populace. The College of the Elemental Sphinx from nature resides within the very innermost parts of nature. It is here where we are initiated and where the codex of the laws of nature is presented to us. However, we must firstly pass a great ordeal, which in occultism is called the ordeal of the sanctuary. Very few have passed such a great ordeal. Those who pass it receive a ring of a monadic substance on which the seal of Solomon is engraved. The Gnostic medic must learn to utilize his elemental instructor, elemental advocate, in order to cure ill people. The Gnostic medic must learn to manipulate the elemental substances from nature in order to cure. Prana is made with the most diverse elemental substances from nature, which the Gnostic medic must learn to manipulate.